morning, everyone. This sermon is from Luke 18, the parable of the persistent widow, as it's sometimes called, or the unjust judge, or whatever it might be. And I want to tell you a story, one of my experiences that I had just this past week that I think is going to help set us up for this passage, something that's just interesting about it. On Tuesday, I went to Midas to get my oil changed. And when I walked in to drop off the car, and the keys to the car, there was a transaction happening at the counter, so I had to stand off to the side. And there was an older woman behind the counter trying to take the payment, and then a younger girl who was confused about why the bill was the amount that it was. And so I didn't know whether or not I should get involved in it. I just chose to practice patience in that moment. But the problem was that there was a coupon that was being applied to a price that didn't match up. So there's this thing on the counter that has three prices. It's like good, better, best. And she was going for the better, the middle price. And the price on that thing was $39.99. And she had a $20 coupon being applied, but her total was $45. And that was weird. There was a disconnect. Her reality wasn't what this paper said. And so the woman behind the counter, it seemed like they were talking past each other, trying to figure this thing out. And over time, I figured it out. I figured out that the price on the counter was wrong. For whatever reason, that just wasn't updated. The actual price was $65. And so then this $20 coupon being applied brought it down to $45. But for whatever reason, the one behind the counter just never felt it evident to say that, even though I had figured it out. So again, just practicing patience, letting them figure it out. She eventually said, okay, I think I understand. She really didn't. The girl paid, went outside for a second, and then came back in and took a picture of it. I'm pretty sure she sent a manager email or something like, you got to fix this. But it's like what it was in reality wasn't what she was seeing, and the communication just broke down. And in our passage today, we're going to experience a reality, something that we think the text says, but our reality is not going to match up to that. And what do we do when the Bible seems to say something that doesn't match up to our reality? One of them is probably going to budge. I think there's some people who will adjust the Bible to say whatever they want it to say. That's not good. Other people will just ignore our reality and go to the Bible and say something nice and cute and just leave it there. Well, that's not good either. So what we're going to try to do is dig into what does the Bible really say, and then allow that to interact with our reality. So the parable of the persistent widow, Luke 18, 1 through 8. This is really cool because this is one of those rare times that the author tells us why Jesus told a parable. So here we go. Luke 18, verse 1. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. There it is. Could I sit down right now? Probably shouldn't. Going on. Verse 2. Jesus said, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared about men. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care about men, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually wear me out with her coming. So we've got this judge, doesn't fear God. Based on his ruling decisions in court, he doesn't care what God thinks. He doesn't care what men think. He's just going to do his own thing. He is an unjust judge. It seems like he has no accountability. And this widow comes in, and just by her persistence, the judge caves in. It's like, fine, just stop badgering me. Verse 6, and the Lord, that is Jesus, said, listen to what the unjust judge says, and will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. So there we go. Wrapped up, nice, tidy little bow. Always pray, never give up, then you'll be granted justice. Here's what some study Bible notes say. I've got 3 of them that sum up the text here. God will not only grant justice to his children who are praying consistently, but will act swiftly in doing so. Number 2, if an evil judge would yield to a poor widow's requests, how much more will God respond to those who continually cry out to him? And the last one, if the repeated petitions of a helpless widow are granted by a dishonest judge, Jesus' followers can expect that their righteous God in heaven will respond to their cries for justice. So, let's take those sentences out, let's put them on a coffee cup, put them up on our wall, and go home. But how do you feel about this? Are you sitting here thinking, okay, yeah, I think I cry out to God continuously for this, for that. But are you experiencing justice? I think a lot of us, this feels like a devotional, right? You take this thing and it makes you feel good, it sustains you for the day, and even though if your reality doesn't match up to it, we're just going to ignore that and take this cute, pithy, inspirational, uplifting statement and go on. But then when reality sets in, it doesn't match up. Now, I didn't read the last part of verse 8, and if you're getting antsy, let's read it, because this is going to put a perfect capstone on it, right? Here we go. So we got this parable, the unjust judge finally rewards the widow, and Jesus says God is surely going to help you. Verse 8, Jesus says, I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Are you confused? Because I certainly was too. Where in the world did the Son of Man thing come from? And why does he just ask this rhetorical question? Because if you go on, he doesn't necessarily answer it clearly. And so these two things, this parable doesn't line up with what we experience in reality, and then there's this confusing phrase about the Son of Man at the end. I think these are things that we have to understand if we're going to allow the reason that Luke tells us this parable is told. If we're going to allow that reason to set in with us, we have to explore a couple things. So the first thing I'd like to talk with us about is justice. What is justice for the widow? What is justice for the original audience? And then how does that relate to us? What is justice for us? The biblical idea of justice goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. So Genesis chapter 1, God creates the heavens and the earth. Day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And on day 6, he has the capstone of creation in humans created in the image of God. And when it comes to justice in the image of God, what this means is that every single human is created equally. We're on the same plane, and we should not oppress each other at all. We should try to equally live with each other and all those sorts of things. The problem is, Genesis 3, and this goes back to what Eric mentioned a lot, we haven't been doing this since the fall. Adam and Eve tried to define good and evil on their own. They take that decision away from God and start defining good on their own terms, which is actually evil in the eyes of God, and they start oppressing people. Barriers start to happen. And so their sons start to have animosity toward each other. Murder breaks out. And pretty soon you have, by Genesis 6, an entire world that is set up on systems of oppression, of people not treating each other equally. And God has to reset all that with the flood. Now, God really, really cares for the people who are being oppressed. If we fast forward to the time of Exodus, God judges Egypt after he gives them several chances. Judges Egypt and Pharaoh because of their oppression of his people, the Israelites. And because he has concern for their crying out, he judges Egypt through the 10 plagues, through the crossing of the Red Sea, and he restores and redeems Israel out of slavery. But then he calls Israel to not become Egypt. He calls them to have compassion on people. Here are some scriptures about this justice. Deuteronomy 27:18. This is Moses delivering his final speech before Israel goes into the promised land. He says, "Cursed is anyone who withholds justice from the foreigner, the fatherless, or the widow." And there we have our character in our parable, the widow. The widow is one of the easiest people in ancient cultures to oppress. in all ancient cultures, you had, because women couldn't advocate for themselves, they always had to have a man to support them financially, to do economics, to represent them in court. So in our story, in our parable, there's something wrong because this widow has no one to represent her. She has to go do it herself. So she's not being taken care of. That's an issue. There's no husband in the picture. There's no father. There's no brother. There's no uncle. There's no nephew. She's completely alone without anyone to advocate for her. So right away, God really cares about this widow. And so the original audience would understand that as well. Yeah, we should probably be taking care of this person. And within this, I don't know if you have questions about justice, because our American justice system is all about punitive justice or retributive justice, as I've coined these terms. So retributive justice is about like punishing wrong action. So if you break the law, you're a criminal. You go to court. You get judged by a judge or a jury, whatever, and then you have to pay a fine. You pay consequences, go to jail, whatever. That's the American justice system. There's not much in the American justice system that's about restorative justice, about people going out into our society, finding those who are oppressed and redeeming them, and then working behind the scenes to change those systems of oppression that constantly keep them down. The restorative piece is us not just saying, yeah, I'm good, like our justice system is fine. No, it's us actually going out into places and helping, and that is what God is much, much more concerned about. In fact, the problem is that Israel becomes the Egypt, and they become this nation who oppresses people. The prophet Isaiah, in chapter 1 of Isaiah, he's calling out to the people, like, stop this. Do you realize how you're contributing to these systems of oppression? Isaiah says, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Proverbs 31, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Psalm 146:9, the Lord watches over the foreigner and sustains the fatherless and the widow. It is all over Scripture that God cares about these people, but he frustrates the ways of the wicked. Those people, and you and I may be complicit in this, those people that just sit back and allow those systems of oppression, God says here in Psalm 146 that our ways will be frustrated, that we should be going out caring for the fatherless, the orphan, and the widow. Why does this widow have no one to advocate for her? So there is our picture of justice, biblical justice, and what the audience would be thinking about. Now the second thing I want to deal with is the Son of Man. This is actually a second coming parable. Within the context of the flow of thought, we read about the Son of Man, we read about the Day of Judgment in Luke chapter 17. It's very interesting. Now, if you don't know what the Son of Man refers to, it's the most common term that Jesus uses to refer to himself. And it refers to this apocalyptic image back in Daniel chapter 7, where the Son of Man, who is just literally a son of a man, is risen up into the heavenly realms, and then this figure on the throne who is God, he's called the Ancient of Days. He's like got gray, wizened hair and all kinds of other identifying factors that he is God. He gives that Son of Man authority to judge the earth. So the Son of Man in itself has connotations of justice. So when Jesus identifies himself as the Son of Man, especially in this passage, he is coming back to the earth as the judge, as the one who will bring about justice, and he will do it swiftly. Note a couple of these phrases from the previous teaching of Jesus. Verse 24 says, for the Son of Man in his day, that means when Jesus returns to this earth to set everything to rights. For the Son of Man in his day will be like lightning, which flashes and lights up the sky from one end to the other. And so he just comes, and it's sudden, and it's swift. Look down in verse 26. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so also it will be in the days of the Son of Man. People were eating and drinking and marrying and being given in marriage up until the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. That's swift. I don't know how many days or hours it took for the waters to completely cover the earth, but the pace of that verse right there is swift. People are just living life, feasting, marrying, giving sons and daughters in marriage, and all of a sudden the flood came and destroyed them in judgment. That's how it will be when the Son of Man returns. Now think about how that relates to the end of our parable. Pray, always, continually, persevere, never give up, because one day the Son of Man will return. Will he find your faith on this earth? If this unjust judge awards this helpless widow because of her persistence, how much more will God, in the day of judgment, finally give you what you deserve in justice? How much more will he restore you out of these systems of oppression compared to this helpless widow? In the book of Revelation, we see a scene that John, the writer of Revelation, he has this apocalyptic vision. And in chapter 19 and 20, Jesus shows up, and he's not like the long flowy hair, halo-y Jesus that we see in paintings. He's the warrior Jesus. He's got a sword coming out of his mouth. He's got his name tattooed on his thigh, and he's riding a white horse. Like, this is, oh no, Jesus. And he shows up, and what he's done in chapters 19 and 20 is he resurrects all of the saints. And I pray that you and I are among those saints. These saints are people who have endured persecution, who have persevered through everything Satan could throw at them on this earth. And they are raised with him to witness a final battle. On the other side of the battlefield, there's Satan. He's a dragon, he's got his beasts, and he's marshaled an army somehow. It's a vision. Don't feel, or don't like get so attention to the details. But there's this army with Satan, and I imagine, are you guys Braveheart fans? Like Mel Gibson, also The Patriot, he does the same thing. So okay, Satan marshals this army. I imagine Satan is Mel Gibson, and he's Braveheart. He's giving the last hurrah to his army, and it's like, come on guys, we're gonna go do it. And there's yelling, and there's a bunch of manly stuff going on. And then he turns around, and you're ready for the trumpet to sound, for the cavalry to charge, and for the battle to commence. But the next verse, Satan is gone. His army is decimated. There's no battle. There's not a battle in the end of time, because Jesus has already won. He already won in the cross. In the resurrection, he's already defeated evil. So the scene that John has in Revelation is just what's already happened. That Satan, at the end of that battle, he's just thrown into the lake of fire. He's just gone. He can't touch the saints anymore. He can't touch those of us who have been persecuted, who have been martyred for the faith, who have experienced hardship in this life. He can't touch us. And so if you and I are among those saints with Jesus, who are dressed in fine linen, we don't have to do anything. Jesus, with that sword coming out of his mouth, takes care of it. There's no chance of Satan touching us anymore on that day, because the battle belongs to God. He's already won. And so what I hope what I actually have discovered, and maybe you have too, is that the meaning of this parable is actually exactly what it says. Always pray, persevere, never give up. But when we look at the biblical view of justice, when we look at what has happened and what will happen, that allows that to sink so deep that I hope and I pray that will motivate us to continue, to persevere, to walk with God at all times in our life, and always pray, always persevere. And so let's bring this home. There are two groups of people, there's probably more, but there's two that I'll talk to. First, at the beginning of the sermon, when I talked about your reality, and you may not experience justice, I hope that you now have this weight of the biblical knowledge of what has happened, what will happen, that will allow you to continue to persevere. We are with you. Keep going, and we as a church are here to come around us and continue to persevere with you. Now the other group, and I might count myself in this group, who maybe don't feel like we're being persecuted. We don't feel like we are, being oppressed by any system. We really need to go to those who are oppressed and make their problems our problems. Because if we don't, we may be the ones who are contributing to this injustice by not even knowing about it. If we just sit back and say, yeah, it's not my problem, you may be complicit in being the Egypt, in being part of Israel who contribute to these systems of oppression. Make their problem your problem. This is one of those times where I'd love for a song to do the conclusion for me. That's why I brought the guitar. And so if you're okay with it, I'd like to sing it, and I've actually brought lyrics for you all. I don't know if you all are singers. I guess Joel is. But I'd love for us to sing the song. It's called Battle Belongs by my boy Phil Wickham. Yeah, if you want to pass these around, that'd be great. As I was sitting this week just asking God, what do I actually say? What do you want me to have? This song came on, and it honestly just kind of blew me away. It was one of those moments. So I'd love for us to sing it. And we will conclude with that song. So. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow. Father, we praise you for this battle that you've already won, that will allow us to continue to persevere, that in the end, those of us who constantly are with you and pursue you and come alongside others who have difficulties bearing the weight of the evil that's still in this world, God, one day you will vindicate us. You will vindicate those who have been killed for their faith, whom Satan has persecuted for their faith. And God, that you have already won that battle, and in the last days, we will witness the destruction of evil in this world and the judgment that you as the Son of Man bring against Satan and his beasts and the evil in the world. God, we pray for that day to come soon. God, until that moment, we persevere with each other in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Love the guitar. Nice. All right, let's chat about this. Any initial thoughts or comments before we get into